No, it's good. You get good candidates. No. And then.
So I felt like it's pretty great.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you were able to do that. I was I actually driving here, I was just thinking, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Is Doug still around or?
Yeah,
I'm glad that worked out.
I think that he's feeling a little bit of pressure to be more engaged with his wife, with the grandbaby.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, folks, I'm told we're streaming now out to the worldwide whatever. So we'll get started with a roll call.
Self. Curran,
Here.
Freely,
Present.
Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Pittsburgh, Ott, Tyler, here, Borath,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Gilbert, Elliot.
Here,
You have 9.
thank you. Mr. Odd is gone today. Minutes from a week ago.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Werfel, supported by Volrath. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list? Mostly change orders. No, thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll segue into an audit review with Nate Balderman. Good morning.
It's not a bad time. Down this year, but
Good morning. Thank you for the time. It's good to be with you again this year. Nate Balderman with Raymond. I'm the engagement principal on the audit. So this year, like normal, kind of the plan, focus a lot just on the audit results overall, not the financial results, but the audit results. We'll walk through a few things in the report. We'll plan on meeting with finance after this to go over things in more detail. But happy to answer any questions or get into as much depth as you want as we're looking through things. So when you're looking at the reports, so this big report is the financial statements. I'm not going to dig into this, but very long report, has a lot of information in it. We did issue an unmodified report or a clean opinion on that. So that basically means that you can rely on the information that's there. Our opinion is that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. It's that reasonable level of assurance. It's not absolute assurance. We didn't test every transaction, but did enough to provide that opinion. And we feel that the financial statements are fairly stated. So as a part of our audit, there's a couple of different components to it. There's the financial audit where we're looking at those financial statements. And then there's the federal awards audit, and that's called in combination, that's a single audit. And in this report, we have both the results of the financial statement audit in terms of the internal controls review that we do. As a part of our audit, we look at the internal controls for the purpose of giving the opinion. It's not the opinion on the financial statements. It's not an opinion on the internal controls, but we're required under standards to report certain things to you when that comes up. So that's the first part of the audit. And when you're flipping, a good summary of all of this is on page 15 of that single audit report. And on that page, it's almost like a report card where it walks through whether or not we had certain issues come up in the audit. So for the internal controls over financial reporting, we did have material weaknesses this year. We had 4 separate material weaknesses that we included in the report. Those are detailed. Everything from we had a material weakness related to the internal or related to audit adjustments. So by definition, if there are audit adjustments where something is detected as a result of our procedures, not something that management, if management comes to us during the audit and they have continued to work on things and they give things to us as a result of their work, just looking into things, wrapping up an audit, that's not a finding. But if we're going through, we look at an account and say, hey, there's something wrong here, an adjustment's required. If those amounts are considered to be material, meet our materiality thresholds, then that would be a material weakness. And so we had some of those items, kind of have a summary of what was included in there, but that was the first finding. The second finding related to the schedule of federal awards. So kind of ties into the single audit. The schedule that's included that lists all your federal grants is considered to be a financial statement. And we look at that in relation to the financial statements as a whole. So if there are things missing or the amounts aren't correct, and those have to be corrected, that also can be considered an internal control weakness. So there were some differences there. There were some issues related to drain capital assets. As a part of our audit and putting the financial statements together, schedules are prepared that outline all of those long-term capital assets. As our part of our procedures this year, there were things that were incorrectly stated on that schedule. And as a result, There were some material adjustments related to the drains. And then if you remember last year with the Act 51 and the road department, there were some issues related to timeliness of reporting. I mean, last year when we were issued the report, the Act 51 report actually was still being modified. We had to look at that. We got it to the point where we were comfortable enough with it, but there were variances that were not cleared up by the time we issued the audit, but it was clean enough that we could give an opinion on the financial statements. This year, there was improvement over last year. It wasn't nearly the issues that it was last year, but there were still significant delays in getting us the information and the information being correct. And so we felt the need that this still needed to be repeated because there were still some significant issues related to that road department accounting with the Act 51 report as well. So that's the financial statement audit. The other part of the audit is our federal awards audit. So I referenced that schedule of federal awards, lists out all your grants. We go through a process of risk assessment that looks at all the different programs based on when they've been tested. And there's all kinds of guidelines in the uniform guidance that go over this. And then we have to select programs depending on when we've tested it. We end up selecting different programs this year. All we had to test was the coronavirus, state and local fiscal recovery funds, those ARPA dollars. So we tested that program as a part of our audit. So in our audit, when we're doing things similar to what we do in a financial statement audit, we are assessing internal controls over each of the areas that we're required to test. There's a compliance supplement that gets issued that tells us what we have to test. And then we design our tests to detect any kind of non-compliance that might be material to that program. And we look at internal controls as well on each of those areas. So we did issue an unmodified opinion on that, meaning we did not detect any material non-compliance for that program, but we did have 3 different issues that we noted as issues for that program. One was related to reporting. There was one of the quarterly reports, just the deadline was missed. And by the time they went to look to correct it, it was kind of the correction was just make sure you include the information on the next quarterly report. So that quarterly report just was not filed. That was, I believe, a follow-up with the federal government on how they wanted that addressed with missing that deadline. We looked at the internal controls over that reporting. Anytime you have something being prepared, especially a financial report, there should be a process by which you review that, just like reviewing invoices or reviewing anything else. We did not, there was not a clear process to have a review and approval over those, at least something that was documented. Again, for us under the government auditing standards and auditing standards that out there has to be some level of documentation for that as well. And if we don't see it, we have to assume that it didn't happen if there's no evidence of that taking place. And then the last item was related to suspension and debarment. That's one of the items that's listed in detail here. The requirements under suspension and debarment is basically you have a couple of different ways that you can verify that vendors that you work with, subrecipients, aren't suspended or debarred. You can go out and look it up. You can put it in your contracts, or you can have a specific statement that they give to you that they're not suspended or debarred. Those did not happen. There is a clear process that the county has for doing it, but somehow on the program, on the items that we were testing, that there was not evidence that had taken place. So we also go through and check to verify that they're not on the list ourselves as a part of our process. It's not that any of them were suspended or debarred. It's just that this didn't take place. And according to the compliance supplement and the requirements of the uniform guidance, we have to, like, it's one of those where, well, yeah, they're not on it, but they assume it, they consider it to be non-compliance if you don't have one of those 3 areas of checking, because they're really trying to make sure that none of those contractors that are on those lists are being served. So those were the items related to the single audit. And In this report, again, we have items that would be considered material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Those 3 items that I noted were all significant deficiencies, immaterial noncompliance, so it didn't raise to that level of material for the federal awards. So the second thing that I always point out to is the separate letter that we issue. It's our communication with those charged with governance. The first part of the letter is really a form letter that talks about those things that we're required to communicate to you as a board that oversees the government. Included in there, though, we do talk about a couple of things. That there's one section on significant accounting policies, and this outlines changes to policies. This year, we had the joy of implementing, or the county had the joy of implementing 2 new policies, or 2 new standards. GASB 100 is a standard related accounting changes and corrections of errors. So the standards changed on when certain things change, and it's one of the most frustrating standards because one of the things that's most common in what they report as financial statement changes is when you have a change in major funds. So didn't go over this in detail, but under government accounting, there's a process that you go through for the funds that you report to say, based on percentages, there's also management selection, but there's some calculations that go in and say, what are your major funds? If those calculations change and something that was a major fund shows up in the front of the report, and that's considered to be opinion unit and we audit at a certain level, moves from either major to non-major or back and forth, that's now considered has to be reported separately, and there has to be a footnote on it. It makes no sense. When everybody saw the standard come out, you're like, they're kidding, right? Because nobody is confused by those movements. Well, GASB thought it needed to be pointed out. You need to have what we now call ghost columns when it moves. I don't think that's in the standard. I think that's what people just started calling it. So you have a column now if something was a major fund and it goes to a non-major fund where all you report is the beginning fund balance and show that it moved. So it's extra columns. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it was a change in standard and you had to implement it this year. The bigger one that was even more a pain was compensated absences. So this year, you had to implement the standard. Historically, compensated absences, the way you recorded the liability for compensated absences, only on full accrual statements. So it's the government-wide statements for your governmental activities would be your general fund activities, all those types of things. And then on the enterprise funds, they get reported in the funds. So compensated absences used to be reported. The idea was, what are you going to pay out if somebody retires and they have this big buildup of hours or small buildup of time off that they haven't used? That's the liability you record. So the change was now they want you to record that, but they also want you to record if somebody has a balance and they're going to use it in the future, that also gets accrued. Sounds fairly simple. It is really a pain because at that point you're starting to, well, what's the probability of somebody doing this or that? It has become a lot of work going into calculating it. I will say it's one of those from an audit perspective. The risk isn't high. Typically, it's the government-wide financial statements only. When you look at debt and the overall debt of the county, the number is still relatively small. So the significant is small, but you still have to go through that process to do those calculations. Our audit procedures tend to be somewhat limited, although in this first year, making sure that the logic follows it took some time. So, this is one, Doug and his team put this together and worked through the calculations. And so it was a lot of work, but I think we got it to the point where there's a reasonable calculation that's there now. So I will also say and I'm getting on my GASB soapbox here, one of the things with GASB they talk about is consistency in financial reporting. I'm finding more and more as we look at how these things are calculated, because there's not a lot of guidance on how you do the calculations. I'm finding a lot of inconsistency on how these calculations are put together. And it's been a lot of work because of that. You know, a lot of liabilities, it's like, do you owe this money or not? Yeah, it's pretty simple, but this is kind of that, you know, how do you come up with that? You know, what somebody's going to do in the next 20, 30 years? Are they going to be around? Are they going to take this vacation or sick time or whatever? And it's become very complicated. Sometimes when we started diving into it, it's like, are they going to turn this into, you need an actuary for this? Because it's a lot like what you have for pensions and OPEB, that kind of thing. So those were the two standards that were implemented this year. And we have more to come this next year. So that is, so Governmental Accounting Standards Board, it's not a state thing. I mean, the state requires you to follow the standards. GASB isn't actually run by the federal government, but it's a separate standard setting body that it's been determined that this is the standard setting body for the state, for the United States though. So yeah, unfortunately you have to do it. It's a lot, there's a lot of those standards that have come out that have been, you know, much more complex, and there's been a lot of discussion, what's the cost benefit of some of this stuff. So then the final part of it, or I'd say final, two more things. So attachment A to that letter outlines, we have several management letter comments. Again, these don't raise to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness. So I won't go over them in detail here, but there are several items there. And then attachment B is, I talked about the standards that were implemented this year. I'm just gonna slide this. Oh, am I? Yeah. Sorry about that. There are 3 new standards that you'll have to be implementing in the next 2 years. So in 2025, the new standard is on certain risk disclosures. This one is really, from my understanding, the GASB started looking at this. It was kind of COVID kind of pushed this one along a little bit more, kind of saying, what do we have in the standards that really addresses when something, when a high level of uncertainty comes about and you have to, how do you report on that? There's not really a standard that talks about what you're supposed to do when that happens. This standard is supposed to address this. There's several things that are included. I mean, this is everything from, you know, contentious union, negotiations or funding, but it's a very high level. We're actually finding we're implementing it now with our junior ends, and we're finding we have to sit down with management and really talk about it because there's a lot of uncertainty and funding going on right now, but it's not the level of what they're trying to talk about. This is like, you know, your funding is just completely going away. You're not going to have it. I mean, you know, it'd be kind of the thing if there was it was considered to be something was passing and you weren't going to be able to have property taxes anymore or something. So, so that's just one, that's the new upcoming standard that we'll be working with management on this year. I don't actually expect there to be disclosures under this very often, but it is something that would have to be assessed on an annual basis. And then there's 2 more changes coming. GASB 103 is financial reporting model changes. So initially this was going to be really big. They were going to change how you did accruals and how you recognize revenue and your governmental funds. They got some feedback in the exposure draft stages and they walked it back a bit. So there's some changes coming though on how some of your budgetary information is going to be presented. It's going to be moving to the back and the narratives are going to be in the back. Right now you have some of that in the management's discussion analysis. So there's some changes there. There's some changes to enterprise fund reporting, but not much, really, nothing really is changing how the amounts, what amounts are going to be reported. It's how they're going to be reported and how things are going to flow. And then the last thing is on disclosures related to certain capital assets. There's some changes coming that also will happen in 26 on how certain things are reported. So a lot changed this year, a lot more to come. And I'm sure there'll be no standards by the time I get here next year that we'll have to talk about too. So, no, went through that pretty fast, covered a lot, but happy to answer any questions you have.
And who makes the policy changes for GASB?
So there is a government accounting standards board that is a standard setting body that they're appointed by the Financial Accounting Foundation. I think it's the same foundation that sets the boards for the Financial Accounting Standards Board that covers like your commercial entities, like that kind of thing.
So
So
it's not, but it's not governmental.
it's not governmental, no. So you can, it's not one where you can go and complain to, you know, your federal, you know, your reps and that kind of stuff and have any kind of change really with it. So unfortunately, or fortunately, I really don't think we'd
Who
want the
offers the
government setting
oversight on
standards.
that? Who offers the oversight on that committee? I mean, who is the, and how are those people put on that board to make those policy changes, to make those things? Who offers that?
That's that foundation that I talked about is how that's been set. Again, there are ways that you can make comment to them. I mean, when standards come out, there's a process that they go through in drafts. We do a lot of commenting through, like I said, on the Michigan Government Finance Officers Association, their standards committee. And they review, anytime a standard comes out, they review it, make comment on it. But we're just one stakeholder, you know, it's the accounting and the auditing community in the state of Michigan that really is on that. But they have a lot of different people. They have, you know, the bond rating agencies are what they would consider a stakeholder, bond holders, you know, obviously the federal government to some extent is, and other entities, but they're supposedly taking all of that information, and those users of the financial statement. So, you know, what we have to apply here for the county level and the local level, you know, that also is the same standards that the states are also doing. The federal government has their own accounting, but the states, colleges, universities, all those types of things, all follow these same standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I don't take comfort in that.
Men in Black.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Nate, as always, we appreciate having you.
Yep.
And
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you next time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right.
I thought you wanted me to
No,
to address
no.
something.
It is. I mean, nameless, faceless.
You understand the question?
Oh, yes, there, yes. It's,
It's Men in Black.
yeah, I mean, there's a bureaucratic Mount Olympus out there somewhere and.
And your audit costs only go up
Yeah,
to comply with the GASB
yeah,
rules.
there's that T-shirt. I saw it again the other day. It says, is there a hyphen in anal retentive? And I mean, if you have a bunch of folks of that mindset getting together, who knows what they're apt to come up with. But anyway, we carry on and do the best we can. We have public comments, but do you have anything, Sheriff, that you wanted to share? All right, well, we can break early for committees if you wish, and then come back at 10:30.